Belinda the Beetle. Chapter 2. Not for Sale. That afternoon, the man in the brown suit walked along Pump Street. He looked rich and respectable. His brown suit was neat and new. He wore a smart Chilby hat. His tie was fastened with a gold pin. His brown shoes looked expensive and well polished, and he carried a leather briefcase. He looked at the cars parked end to end along the street. No one was about, and he strolled up to the best, a big Bentley. He opened the door, got in, and drove away. Now if I tell you that the car did not belong to him, you will know what sort of man he was. He was not respectable at all. He was a thief. He called himself Mr. Brown, but that wasn't his real name. He had a great deal of many names. Whenever he went to a different place, he used a different one. He did that to make it hard for the police to catch him. He drove to the garage and walked into the showroom. Mr. Whisker came to meet him. "I want a small car for my wife," said Brown. "Have you got anything that might suit?" "I'm sorry, sir. I've nothing suitable in stock. But if you were to take these catalogues, your wife could choose the car she likes, and I should be very pleased to get it for you." "That would not do at all," said Brown. "It's to be a surprise for her. I want it at once. A second-hand car would do." Brown had been walking about the room as he talked. Now he stood looking through the open door into George's workshop. "I see you have a little beetle there," he said carelessly. "That might suit. May I see it, please?" Mr. Whisker took him through. George was working on Belinda. Brown went all around her, lifted her engine lid, poked her cushions, and fiddled with her controls. "Oh dear," thought Belinda, "I don't like him at all." It was all she could do to keep still while he poked her about. "Oh, oh, oh," she cried, as he tried the horn. "Yes," said Brown thoughtfully. "This will do very well. How much?" Belinda felt dreadful. "Oh dear," she said to herself, "he wants to buy me." Mr. Whisker was taken aback. What did you say, sir?" "I said how much," snapped Brown. "How much do you want for this car?" "But surely, sir," said Mr. Whisker, "you know your own business best, of course. But this car would be most unsuitable as a present for your wife. It's being repaired after an accident, and isn't in good condition. Wouldn't your wife prefer a new car of this sort? I could get one through for you very quickly." No, said Brown. "A new car would not do at all. My wife is, shall we say, a careless driver. She has not yet passed her tests, and I can't afford to have her damaging a new car. But an old one like this wouldn't matter a bit. How much?" Worse and worse, thought Belinda. She felt as if her engine had sunk to her wheels. She looked anxiously at Mr. Whisker. "Don't sell me. Please don't sell me," she whispered. Poor Belinda, thought Mr. Whisker. He wants to buy her for his wife who can't drive, and he says it won't matter if she gets damaged. Aloud he said, "I'm sorry, sir, but this car is not for sale." "Rubbish, man," said Brown. "It's £1,000. "No, sir." £1,500 then." "No, sir, I really cannot." £2,000 money down. And Brown rummaged through his briefcase and produced a wad of notes. "No, sir, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't sell it to you even if you offered me £3,000. For one thing, my mechanic hasn't finished repairing her yet, and I make it as a rule never to sell a defective car to anybody. It isn't fair to my customers, besides being bad business, and for another thing, it isn't fair to the car to sell her to someone who is likely to damage her." Brown turned on his heel and went out. "I've never heard such nonsense," he stormed angrily. Not fair to the car indeed. A car's only a machine. That's all you know about it, said Mr. Whisker, as he closed the door behind him. Phew, said William Whisker. He came through into George's workshop and sat down. Thank you, Mr. Whisker, whispered Belinda. Mr. Whisker didn't hear her. He was too exhausted. Have you any more tea in that pot, George? He asked. I could do with some just now. Certainly, William, if you don't mind using my cup. And he poured out the tea, steaming hot. Mr. Whisker drank it gratefully. George picked up his tools and started work on Belinda again. You know, William, said George after a while, I admired the way you stood up to that chap. Fancy saying it wouldn't matter if Belinda was damaged, and when you said no to £2,000, I wanted to get up and cheer. Belinda was excited, weren't you, old girl? Yes, George, I was, and she gave a wriggle at the thought. Of course you were. Keep still, can't you? How can I mend you if you make your bits slip out of my fingers like this? That's the third time I've had to crawl underneath and pick up this washer. You're tickling, George. Tickling my foot, grunted George. You're wriggling, Belinda, that's what. Look here. That's the fourth time that washer slipped. If you move again, Belinda, I'll chock your wheels. At this dreadful threat, Belinda subsided, and George was able to continue his work, watched by William. You know, George, he said at last, quite apart from saying he didn't mind if Belinda was damaged, I didn't like that Brown. He was a wrong 'un, all right. Didn't you notice how he never looked at you straight in the face when he was talking? No more he did, now I come to think of it. All that tale, too, of wanting to give his wife a present. I don't believe he's even got a wife. I know if I was as well off as he makes out to be, and I gave my wife a present of an old car like Belinda, why, she'd go up in smoke. Belinda's engine lid shut with a bang. Here, Belinda, protested George, you nearly nipped me then. Next he heard Belinda making a most peculiar noise. Have you heard a motor car crying? You haven't? Then I can't explain what it was like, because there's no other noise like it. What's the matter, Belinda? Asked William. George said I was an old car and his wife would like me as a present. Oh dear, said George. I'm sorry, Belinda. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just meant if I was as rich and stuck up as that Brown, my wife would be stuck up too. And she wouldn't like a dear old car like you. You wouldn't want to be a present for that Mrs. Brown. Now do you? No. Mr. Whisker and I think that Brown is a bad man, and he's telling us lies. We didn't mean that you were a horrid old car and no use to anybody. You're a very nice car, and we want you to have a good home. Yes, George. Well then give over crying. There's a good car. And let me get on with mending you. I can't mend you if you keep on coughing like that. Yes, George, I'll try. George worked in silence for a while. Then, it's funny, William, he said. But Brown is the second bad type we've had interested in Belinda today. And he told him what Snoop had tried to do that morning. Did you notice Brown poking about inside? It seemed to me as if he was looking for something. No ordinary customer puts his fingers down the cracks beside the cushions. Brown did. Snoop was looking for something inside Belinda this morning. He thought I wasn't watching him, but I was. Did he find anything, George? No, not a thing. I should have been on him if he had. They were both looking for something and they didn't find it, said Mr. Whisker thoughtfully. Let's have a go ourselves, shall we? Belinda, we think you've got something hidden inside you and we're going to look for it. What is it? Asked Belinda. Search me, said George. But it must be valuable, otherwise Brown wouldn't have offered £2,000 for you this afternoon. George and William searched Belinda thoroughly. They took out the cushions and looked underneath them. They looked in every possible hiding place they could think of. They even took the tyre off the spare wheel to see if anything was hidden there, but they didn't find anything except dust. "There can't be anything," said William at last. "All the same, I don't like it. Look here, George, drop everything else and get Belinda finished, and I'll try and find a good home for her before these two jokers come snooping again."